Hello, quilters. It's Geraldine here for another Saturday live session. We are going to talk about the amazing quilt that we've been working on, and it's all finished. And I did one little extra thing that I wanted to share with you. The last time we were together, I did the free motion quilting right here in the background. We have another quilt that's underneath here that I call Ripple. Maybe you can help me with a different name or a better name that we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about Stitch in the Ditch. And of course, we have show and tell. So I want to share with you two projects where we talk about Stitch in the Ditch. So who's here? Marsha. Hey, Marsha, how are you? So glad that you're here. Awesome, awesome. Good to see you. I wonder, how was your week? Did you work on any quilting projects? Are you thinking about a new project? What have you been up to? Let us know what you've been up to. Hello from Louisiana. How are you? Let's see. Oh, that's Catherine. Welcome, welcome. So glad that you're here. So, okay, let's get started. So the amazing quilt is finished. I decided that I was going to round the corners. And I have this creative grids ruler. And I created a new switch between the cameras. So let me know if you like this new switch. I'm going to make the close-up camera the big scene and then make me small in a circle. So here we go. Hopefully this works out okay. Let's try it. There we are. Okay, so here it is. This is the Creative Grids ruler. It's called a multi-curve corner cutter. So there's a 3-inch radius corner here, a 1.5 here, and then this side is 2 inches, and then we have a 90-degree angle so that you can cut your corners, know what size you're going to cut them. And so I decided to do that on this quilt. So here it is where I cut that round edge right there. So I'm loving it. I think it turned out really, really good. So I decided to use the 3-inch side. Now I know we can just take a saucer, a plate, or a cup and do exactly the same thing. The reason why I like this one is because it cuts the curve and you line up the edges. So when you put this on, let me see if I can get this a little bit better situated. All right, so when you put this along the edge of your quilt, you have a straight edge here, where is the edge of your quilt here and the edge of your quilt here. And then whatever you have to cut to round it off is right here. So you're going from a straight to a round to a straight. So with a plate, you're not going to have these two straight edges on either side. So that's why I like this. So I wanted a gentle curve. So I did that on 3 corners. Hello, who else is here? Let's see. Hey, is that Benita? Let me see. I need to change this over here. Okay. Yes, it is Benita. All right. This is what happens when you get older. Your eyesight, I have challenges both, long distance and short. So reading up close, I need glasses, and far distance, I need glasses. I can see in the middle, but when it comes up close, I need glasses. When it's really far, I need glasses. So anyway. You like the close-up. Great. Yay. Hello, Kelly. How are you? So glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome. All right, so that's what I decided to do. I cut curves on 3 of the 4 corners. Now, this is a practice quilt, right? It's one I'll use as a sample, probably for a class or something, but it's also a way for me to practice techniques. So I decided, here's the other corner, curved, but let me show you. This is a panel from Spoonflower. And whenever you order from Spoonflower, they tell you the job number and who it's designed by. So it says Living Order Quilter, which is nice. Custom printed on signature cotton. And then there's a order number. And I don't cut this before I do the quilting. Instead, I leave it, and then after it's quilted, I trim the quilt, right? But ladies, as I was trimming it, I decided that, no, I think I'm going to leave it as my label. So I left this as a 90-degree instead of using this to make it round. So if I was going to do that, remember, I would put one straight edge here, one straight edge here. Then all I have to cut is right here on the curve. And then I keep a nice gentle curve coming from the straight curve, and then a nice curve into the straight here. So this is the Creative Grids multi-size curve corner cutter. And anything I share, remember, is always in the description in the chat. So what have you ladies been up to? What are you up to, Catherine? Are you sewing or quilting a project? I'd like to know what you're up to. And oh, Beverly is here. I think that's Beverly. Bev and Kelly, what are you ladies up to? All right, so this is finished. Now she just needs binding. And of course, since I did curve the corners, I need some bias binding, right? I need bias binding. Let me switch back to this camera. So she's a decent size, right? It's 1 full yard of fabric by 44 inches. So it's a nice size quilt. It's a good baby quilt, something to put on the floor for your child to play with. I love it. So yeah, now what color binding? I was thinking yellow. Should it be yellow? Should it be gray? What do you ladies think? And then I thought, if it's yellow, it can get dirty really fast and you could see it right away, but this white fabric, so what does that matter, right? So anyway, that is done. I wanted to share that with you. She just needs to be bound. All right, let's see what the comments. You've been busy teaching, says Benina, beginner sewing classes. Fantastic. Love to help the beginners out. I love that. Let's see if I can get this over here. Close-up looks awesome. Thank you for that. And let's see, I've been working, let's see, a bit of contrast. Yeah, Marsha, I think you're right. A bit of contrast would work with the yellow. You like the yellow too. Yeah, the yellow will pop, Catherine. So I guess it's unanimous. Yellow, my first instinct. All right. And Kelly is practicing her free motion. Fantastic. I love to hear that. Free motion quilting practice. We always need that. And let's see, Benina said she's been busy teaching her beginner sewing classes. Fantastic. Love that too. And Kelly says she's been doodling on her. Now I can't read that. What does that say? I gotta go to the other computer. I practice doodling your planets. Oh, the circles inside the maze quilt. Is that what you're talking about? I like that design. It's really fun. If that's what you're talking about. I can't remember. You like that motif. Yeah, it's kind of fun to do. Were you doing it free motion or were you using a ruler to do that? Let me know in the chat. And Catherine's working on a twin size memorial quilt. Now that sounds interesting, Catherine. Are you using the clothing for the person who it's a memorial for? We'd love to learn more about that. And how did you choose the pattern for the memorial quilt? Is the quilt for you? Let's see. All right. I think I've covered everything in the chat. So I did mention that we were going to start talking about stitch in the ditch, right? So stitch in the ditch, what is that? We all know, basically, if we're a beginner, we stitch in the ditch with our walking foot. But I use stitch in the ditch to stabilize the quilt, prepare it for machine quilting with different designs and different techniques. And I do that in multiple ways. Maybe you do it too. I like to do stitch in the ditch free motion quilting style. I also like to use my acrylic ruler to stitch in the ditch, near the ditch, and on and near but on top, if that makes sense, which is basically a top stitch. It looks like a finishing stitch that we would put, say, on a bag or clothing. A top stitch is very near the ditch, so it's not in the ditch. So I use those three ways. Stitching in the ditch, near the ditch, and a top stitch that is near the ditch. Okay, so Catherine says her friend picked churn dash pattern instead of just squares. I think that's a fun pattern. You still get to use, especially if you're using clothing, you still get a nice piece of fabric with the churn dash, right? That's nice. Okay. Oh, dress shirts from her dad. Oh, that's going to be so special. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. What size is it going to be? So we said the churn dash, and it's shirts from her dad, which is awesome. All right. Big circles. Oh, yeah, the planets, right. The planets were, that's interesting that you call them planets. I got to think about that, with the big circles with the arcs in it. Cool. Yes, it was on the first quilt. They look like planets. I would agree with that. They do. I actually got the idea for the maze quilt to do those circles because the maze reminded me of that video game from years ago, Pac-Man. How many of you remember Pac-Man? Yeah, it has been fun using walking foot for most. Yep. And then using free motion on the borders saves time. That's true. I agree with that. That's what I did for a long time, was walking foot, and then decorative stitching with the walking foot when I finished my quilt projects. So stitch in the ditch, let's get back to that. So I've already started quilting this ripple quilt. That's what I'm calling it, ripple. And the reason why I'm calling it ripple, let me go to the other camera, is because of, like, when you throw a stone in water, it has a ripple effect. And so the triangles, right, the geese are rippling out on either side. So that's why I call it ripple. And it happens in several places. If you ladies think of a better name, let me know. Now, I already had an idea in mind, and I always put something down on paper when I have an idea to see if what's in my head visually could potentially work on a project. I bet you ladies do that too, right? So this is what I thought about when it was in my head. I said, can I put this inside the quilt? What will that look like? And right now I'm doing a series on improv quilting. So this is improv quilting. And one of the techniques with the improv quilting is to use shapes to help support the improvisational quilting. But you need a foundation. The foundation is the stitch in the ditch. So with a panel, it doesn't have seams. However, I call the seams in a panel the color change from orange to white is right there. That is the seam from one color to the next. So I've already stitched in the ditch around this shape, which is in between the two colors. Now, whenever you're doing a panel, you have to decide if you're going to stitch on one color or the other, on the orange or the white. I chose the white. That way I can do that for all the colors. So there's orange, green, yellow, and blue of this design in the panel. So I chose white to stitch right next to the orange so that I would not stitch on top of the orange because I didn't want the white thread to show. So how do I do that? Of course, I'm using my Stitchline Ruler, right? And the Stitchline Ruler has some tabs. Let's see here. There we go. See those tabs? Those tabs are 1/4 inch from this edge. So the top edge of the tab is a 1/4 inch distance from here when you put the foot next to it. So if I line up the tab, where can I do it so that you can see what I'm doing? Can you see it here? Maybe you can see it here. So my foot is here. I'm going to take this tab. I want to go from this direction down. I put the edge of this tab pointed exactly where I want my needle to stitch. So once my foot's in place, I know that it's not going to touch the orange fabric, part of the fabric, because this edge is not touching the orange. So that's one way that I do it. And I like this way better for a panel. The other way, of course, is to use the channel feature. But you can kind of wiggle your way out. You don't really have a true way of gauging if the ruler is, if this line is dead center, put it that way. So that's what I like to do, right? So either I'm using the tabs or I'm using the channel. I normally use the channel when I actually have seams. And when I don't have multiple seams, I'm using the tabs. When I'm using the channel, the reason why I like to use the channel with a seam is because I can line up the other reference lines on the ruler with the other seams in the quilt. That helps confirm that this is right inside the ditch or near the ditch if that's what I want. And I know then it's going to stitch. So once I stitch in the ditch in the white here around this black square, I use white thread. It's all the way around this, all the way around that, then all the way around this using the tab feature. Once I did that for every single one of these patterns, here's another one. And I did it also with the green over here, which I think I missed some parts of one of these. I have to go back. What I haven't done is the blue. I still need to do the ditch work around the blue, which I'm going to show you how I do that. So I have my white thread in, and I want to go around the black square, then go around the outer white square. So let me see who else is here. Hello, Scotty. So glad that you're here. Welcome. Let's see. All right. Oh, I don't have my machine threaded. All right. Got that all set. It helps me to stabilize the quilt in a progressive way so that when it's time to put in the actual design that I want to quilt, I am assured that everything is going to stay in place. And every time I do stitch in the ditch or near the ditch, I do a check. I check on the back of the quilt. And if you've been around here long enough, you know that I always prep my fabric. I wash and starch my fabric. If the quilt, because I've been moving it around as a result of quilting it, it starts to shift or stretch, I just take it back to the iron. I spray a little bit of mist of water in the area that might be getting stretched, and it reactivates the starch. Once the starch is reactivated and then I apply heat, it causes the fabric to contract. And so that helps me keep the backing flat, the front flat, and I'll do that after every single stage. I will check. So I quilt in stages, and so I can check in between each stage. And there's no worry with wetting the fabric because it's all been pre-washed. It's all been checked for color bleed and all that, so I'm good to go. So now the thing about stitching the ditch when you have a panel and you're stitching between two different colors and you pick one color, I picked white, I want to stitch on the white, not on the black. I have to make sure the needle is just one hair to the right inside the color that matches my thread. So that's what I'm doing here. Once that's in place, I know I'm good to go. All right. So now I'm going to use the tab feature that I mentioned. And with the tab feature, I'm going to make sure that it is that this edge of the tab is just beyond the black fabric and it's in the white fabric. So I'm going to do that. And then I can also check with the reference lines on the ruler. I'll know I'm stitching a straight line if the reference line is lining up with the edge of the black square or whatever color that square is. And this is careful and slow work. I don't rush it. All right. And if I go one stitch too far, I have no problem with pulling up the needle and putting it back in place. So I'm going to do the same thing here using the tab. I love this tab feature on the ruler. Okay. And if you are new to rulers, I can use the tab feature with the ruler on either side of the foot. So the tab now, the edge is on this side, and I want to make sure that this is not touching the black fabric at all. It's just outside of the black fabric. And it is. Okay. Okay. All right, so I went all the way around the square, the black square, stitched in the white area. Now I'm going to continue and stitch around this next square that's the white in between the blue, just using the same technique. I'm wondering if I should switch over. Let me switch to the other camera. Maybe you'll see a little bit better. Okay, you have a question. Let's see. Oh, you're welcome, Catherine. You're welcome. Taking time to show you. I think the stabilizing of the quilt with Stitch in the Ditch really works well for those of us who use a sit-down machine, whether it's a long arm machine or domestic machine, because then you have freedom to quilt the rest of it any way you want. You don't have to worry if it's getting messed up or puckering or anything, because you did all that heavy lifting, that work ahead of time. It does take a little bit of practice, but once you get it down and you learn how to use the ruler features, one more stitch, you'll get better and better. And so it just takes practice, right? Let's see. Can I zoom in on that one a little bit more? Let me see if I can zoom in this camera a little bit more. I don't know if it's going to make it sharper, but we'll see. There we go. All right. The important thing is that when you start, the needle needs to be in the right position to begin with. I was off a little bit, and so the ruler moved, and I have a little wiggle here. Am I worried about that? No, I'm going to keep going. I don't need a seam ripper for a little bit of a wiggle, so don't worry about that. All right. There it is. I need my glove a little bit here. My hand is sliding a little bit. All right, just about done. Did you also notice that I'm turning the ruler? I'm not turning the quilt. And I'm stitching on all four sides. That's what I love about ruler quilting, is that if I was using a walking foot, you know what I'd have to do? I'd have to turn the fabric every single time I want to go in a different direction. But with ruler quilting, we don't have to do that. All right. So I will take the thread, cut and bury the thread, which means I'll make it into a knot, and then take the two threads, make a knot, and bury it in the quilt sandwich. All right. So I'm not going to do more of that because you've seen me do it. I'm just going to do it again around here. And then I'm going to go on to the next phase. And the next phase, I already started in different areas, which I'll show you here in the orange part of it. I started to do some echo quilting around the shapes. So I'm using orange thread here, yellow thread here, green thread here. And so with the stitch and the ditch work done, I started to do an echo based on the shape, straight line, but not a complete echo. It's partial echo here, and then the line continues to go this direction and this direction, and then this direction. So basically, it's taking these straight lines that are kind of shooting off the sides of the shape, which was, again, this inspiration. This was the inspiration for that. So you can see that. There we go. So have I done this before, this design before? No. Do I want to try it? Yes. Is it going to turn out? I don't know. We're going to see together. All right. Let's see. What else do you have to say? Check in the comments. And I thought about using the different colors. And so the next stage after the stitch in the ditch is to do these lines that radiate off the shape. So it's going in this direction. It's going to go in that direction. It goes this direction. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Did I do that right? 7 straight edge sides. So I need a line going off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different directions. And I'm going to do that for each of the shapes that look exactly like this. Then I'm going to stop, press it, take a look at it, and see, does it need more quilting? And if so, where am I going to put the quilting and how? So we're taking that journey together, right? But let me show you a couple of examples of some stitch in the ditch work that I did on previous projects. I said I always have a show and tell for you. So here's the show and tell. I have 2 of them. Let's see, what's first? Yeah, practice is important, Catherine. You're so right. Practice, practice, practice. And I love practicing on these panels. You know, we go from the small sandwiches that we just make with extra fabric we have, like a fat quarter or something, and then a small fabric panel, small, which I'm working on one. Here's a small one that I'm working on. All right, smaller than this. And then we can work our way up. And the reason why is, one, you're doing multiple things at one time. You're learning a technique, you're practicing a technique. You also are practicing how to manage and handle a quilt. As it gets bigger, we have different challenges, right, with quilting. So let me see. The first one I want to share with you is, let's see, I'll just open it, and then once it's on the screen, we'll figure it out. All right, so I think this is a great example of Stitch in the Ditch. How many of you have made a cathedral window quilt? And if you have, did you quilt it? And if so, was it by hand or was it by machine? All right? Our quilting skills, the more skills we have, the more ability we will have to quilt different types of quilts, right? So that's another way to practice. This is a small cathedral window quilt that I made years ago, and I used it as a challenge. This is now the cathedral window quilt finish. It's not very big. I have it right here. Let's see. This is it right here. It's not very big, right? It's a decent size. Okay. Good enough to practice on a home machine, which is what I did. It was quilted on a home machine. So, talking about Stitch in the Ditch, how do you think I stitched in the ditch? I used an acrylic ruler. I used a curved ruler. I looked at all my curved rulers to see which one would fit the arc of that cathedral. All right. Okay, not yet. You haven't tried the cathedral window yet. Okay, this is my first and only one. Okay, so I use this ruler to stitch near the edge of the arcs, not on top, but right next to it. Remember I talked about stitching near the ditch, but in this case, it wasn't near a ditch, but it was acting as a stabilizer in preparation for machine quilting. So let me show you what that looks like. So there it is. I eventually used this also to do curved crosshatch. It was just a natural way to keep going and practice my crosshatch and practice with this curved ruler. So that's what I did there. You can see, but I used the same curved ruler to stitch near every single arc of the cathedral window to stabilize it before I did the curved crosshatch. Okay, now look at, did I do the right one? That's wrong. That one, okay, this one. So do you notice the difference between the very first photo and this one? Can you tell that there's a little bit of puckering around each of the cathedral windows? That's because, one, I used 2 layers of batting, and second, because I stitched along every single curve. Now it's ready for free motion. So here I'm auditioning different free motion quilting patterns. It's ready for free motion quilting. Now I decided personally not to stitch in the window. I decided only to stitch around the windows. Thank you, Catherine. I'm glad you like it. Thank you, thank you. So are you ready to see what the final result is? Let's see this final result. Yeah. All right, so let's go back to the very first one before I reveal the final. Okay, close that one. So this is it pieced, and now it needs to be quilted in some way. It needs to, and what am I going to do? How am I going to quilt it? What are my decisions? Often we get stuck with machine quilting ideas because we haven't taken time, at least in my humble opinion, to learn how to make those decisions. We have to practice making the decision on what thread, practice making a decision on what thread weight, practice making decisions on what design, practice on what areas we're going to quilt and not quilt. The more we practice making those decisions, the more confident we'll become. But it takes courage to begin with, courage to make the decision, and then live with the result, whether you like it or not, right? There are a lot of things that I didn't like, decisions that I made, but I learned from them, right? All right, so let's see the final one. The final finished. There it is. I did the stitch in the ditch, which is really along the curves because there's no ditch, but it still stabilized the quilt. I use stitch in the ditch to stabilize the quilt. And so whenever I'm thinking about stabilizing, it could be in the ditch, near the ditch, or used in another way where you won't see those stitches. When you look at this in person, you don't see the stitching near these curves. And that's creating a frame around the free motion. The only way you see it is if you look at the back. And let me show you the back. I'm going to switch cameras. So hopefully you can see that a little bit. Each one of these arcs is that near the ditch stitching along each of those curves on the cathedral window. And it framed the free motion. Okay. Now you can see the curved cross hatch along the edge. So stabilizing the quilt with stitch in the ditch, near the ditch, on top of the ditch, pseudo ditch, it gives us creative freedom. It lays everything nice and flat for us, and then we can come in and fill in our free motion quilting design. All right. So this was a fun project. And I did a pseudo binding. This is really facing. I just added an extra piece of fabric, and that fabric was also sewn with some black fabric. So red and black, and then it was folded over to do the facing. And then by stitching in the ditch along here, it creates a binding look. So it's a binding look with a facing finish. Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Catherine, for letting me know. It makes sense. Great. Thank you. That's some controlled quilting. It's lots of practice, Scotty. Lots of practice. Oh, thank you, Marsha. I'm glad you like it. By the way, there is a video here on the YouTube channel. You just go to my channel and search Cathedral Window. I have a full live session where I went through all the steps. I think it was all the steps. I haven't watched it in a while, but it's a pretty popular video. There's a short one that's a vertical. Look for the one that was a Quilt Conversations live session where I talked about this project. Okay, so are you ready for another example of stitch in the ditch? I showed you one that wasn't really in the ditch, but I was using that same stabilizing technique, right? Are you ready for another example? This hour always goes by so fast. I think I can do this in 30 minutes, and it never ends up being 30 minutes. Okay, let me see any comments that I missed. Oh, I'm glad you like it, Elizabeth. Welcome. So glad that you're here. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Scotty. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you so much for being here. I didn't see you sneak in. All right. Okay, so are you ready for example number 2? This is a foundation paper piece project. Again, it's a small beginner size project. Fantastic for practicing multiple techniques, right? We want to practice multiple techniques. Every project, I'm looking to practice something that I'm learning, improve something that I've been stitching, but I still want to do better at it. This is called Flying High. This is a quilt that I designed and created last year. And I just love how it turned out. I used my Stitchline Ruler to quilt it. I did stitch in the ditch to stabilize it. I did it in the ditch, near the ditch, and a top stitch to stabilize. What is she talking about? You're probably wondering. Why would she do all those techniques? Because we can use the stitch in the ditch for not only stabilizing, but for color creativity. So this piece has a lot of different thread colors. I didn't think I counted the number, but there's teal, there's green, there's orange, there's blue, there's pink, there's silver. And I used some of the near the ditch top stitch stabilizing with colorful thread, right? It still gave me the stabilization that I wanted, but it also act as a beautifier, I guess, of the quilt. Let's take a look. So, oh, thank you. We always thank you for your time. I appreciate that, Marcia. Okay. All right, so let's look at the first photo. Nice and big. All right, I think this is it. I want you to see that. I want you to see the front first. So look at this short little video. I'll let it loop a couple of times. See if you notice the areas where it's stitching the ditch and stitching near the ditch and then some top stitching. Sometimes when we're piecing, depending upon how we press open, press to one side, the ditch can be up and down from one section to the next. And so that caused me to do things just a little bit different. Can you see? This is not the machine quilting. This is all the stabilizing of the quilt in preparation for the quilting. Right? I stitched around the silhouette fabric, ditched that. I ditched the little gray border. I did some horizontal ditching. I did some vertical ditching. And then I did some horizontal and vertical top stitching. Do you notice the second band of gray thin fabric that's just 1 inch? It's in between the colorful flying geese. That's where the top stitching is. It's in that gray area. Yes, this is my sister. I think she has seen it. I think I showed it to her when it was done. She liked it. And I did some ruler quilting in the hair, right? Free motion in the background, multiple techniques, all honing my skills, practicing how to make decisions for different elements of a quilt. Let me go to the next one. Okay, great. You can see it. Now I'll go to the next photo. So you saw the front. This is what it looks like on the back of the quilt. All stabilized. Before I move to the next step, I check the back. Did the stabilization work on the back? Is the fabric flat? Are there any puckers, etc.? Do I need to take something out and redo it? Did the fabric quilt top shift in any way? That's when I take the time to inspect before I move on to the next step. Now, I already decided that I was going to quilt it with wavy quilting with multiple thread colors. Now, you love the color. Yeah, it's fun. Thank you. All right, I think this is the next one. All right, so here is the beginning of adding the wavy stitching. And of course, you know what ruler I use. I use my Stitchline Ruler. So this ruler was used for stitching near the ditch, in the ditch, doing top stitching, and now the wavy quilting. And sometimes let me know in the chat, let me know if this is you, because it happens to me all the time. You start quilting something, you look at it, you made a decision, and you think, oh no, I made the wrong decision. Raise your hand. Have you ever did that and said, oh no, I chose the wrong thread, or I chose the wrong pattern? I do that at almost every quilt. I'd like to know if that's you. Stabilizing, I started with the silhouette in the center, just doing around that rectangle inside the center, and then I worked my way around. Okay, so Catherine says, yep, you made that decision. You said, well, did I make the right one? And then how many of you keep going and how many of you take out the seam ripper? Years ago, I used to take out the seam ripper more often, but now I don't do it as much because I've learned over time that I need to stick to a decision and look at the final outcome to really know if my idea worked. If I don't take it to completion, I'll never know if it was a good idea or not because I immediately discounted it because I didn't like the beginning of the idea. Sometimes we don't see the full effect of something until we have it completely done. And that's what happened with this quilt, the Flying High. Okay, great. Catherine keeps going mostly. Fantastic. Yep. Someone put an emoji in there, but I'm not sure what that is. Elizabeth, is that a snowman raising his hand? I think so. and Scotty, you said you're there now making decisions and not sure. I think that's what you're saying, that you made the right decision. Keep going, just like Catherine said, keep going and see what happens. That's why practice is so important. We need that experience to see how things start and how they work from the beginning to the middle to the end. So this is the middle of this quilt. And I wasn't sure that I made the right decision, but I said, you know what? You plan to put a lot of thread on here. You plan to put a lot of color. Keep going. Don't stop. And so here's the final quilt, and I'm very pleased with it. I love how it turned out. And, you know, there's some things that I would do differently, but overall, I love it. I love it. And so that's how I stitch in the ditch and get good results, the kind of results that I want. It makes it easier to quilt something when I stabilize it with stitch in the ditch or near the ditch. It also helps the quilt to lay flat. Flat, especially if it's an art quilt. You want it to lay flat. You don't want a lot of puckering happening or the fabric poking up here or there because there's no stitching there. And yeah. So anyway, that's my process. That's how I use Stitch in the Ditch, and how I love to do it with a ruler, whether it's using this for the seams, and I would do that on this type of quilt. I would use the channel feature because I can check the reference lines on the ruler with the seams. When it's a panel, there are no seams to check, so not often I will use the tabs instead, especially if I'm going to stitch between two colors and there's high contrast between those colors. Yay! Glad you like it, ladies. Another fun evening. I can't believe it's almost 8 already. So, one last thing. If you are brand new, I wanted you to know about something that I'm a part of. It's called the Mega Bundle. The Mega Bundle. What is that? It happens once a year. It's by Quilter's Paradise. They contact designers, quilt designers, free motion quilting teachers, foundation paper piecing teachers, English paper piecing, every kind of quilting teacher, instructor, designer, and ask if they want to participate in this mega bundle. So I said yes this year. And what they do is they take all these resources and they put them in all in one bundle. And you get all those resources at a super, 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 super discount. My contribution is a free motion quilting starter bundle. So within that mega bundle, there are little bundles, patterns, video courses, etc. So I included a free motion quilting starter bundle. And in that bundle, it's how to get started with free motion with your machine setup. It's my class on free motion quilting shapes. One of the best ways to get started with free motion is quilting something we already know, something that's already in our hands. And usually shapes, the alphabet, things that we already know how to draw are the best ways to get started. So I have that on my website as a video class, free motion quilting shapes. So in the bundle, you get the machine setup class, video class, and you get the free motion quilting shapes class. So you also get a quilter's journal. So it's 3 things all inside my bundle, which is in the mega bundle. So what does that journal look like? Let's see. So this is the mega bundle. There's some of the examples of the patterns that you'll get: tote bags, mini courses, quilts, how to make a coat from a quilt. Amazing, amazing resources. I pinned at the top of the chat, so you'll have to scroll, the link on how to get the bundle. Go take a look at it. Click the link. Go take a look at it. See if some of the things in this bundle are things that you've been wanting to get for a long time. Now, the sad news is that the bundle offer expires on the 17th or the 19th. I think it's the 17th, but it might be the 19th. Once it ends, it's gone forever. It's a one-of-a-kind bundle. So go take a look at it, because you get everything in the bundle for that one low price. And then there's Record Your Quilt Stories Quilting Journal and inspirational cards. That's all inside my bundle. Machine setup, quilting free motion shapes, and the Quilting Journal. The Quilting Journal is a PDF document that you download and you print whatever pages you want when you want them. And then you can attach it to or give it as a gift. Often when I give a quilt to someone in my family, as a way of preserving my professional experience as a quilter. I did this a couple years ago. My nieces and nephews each got a quilt, and I gave them quilts that were published in publications and the colors that they liked. And I gave them a copy of the magazine. I gave them the quilt. So they have like this documentation, the history of the quilt. So you can use the journal in that way to record the history of the quilt. I just think it's a fun way to record the history. Yeah, so that's in the bundle. Go take a look at that. And did I have one more thing for you? I think I showed everything. Oh, the improvisational quilting. Sure, Kelly. I'm going to teach at QuiltCon, and I'm teaching improv quilting, ruler quilting, and beginner ruler quilting. I'm also going to do a lecture. And some of you have attended this recent lecture I did at CT Publishing's virtual event called Patchwork Power. And in it, I talked about how we can reimagine the tools that we already have with ruler quilting specifically, and how we can do basic things like use shapes, which is what I'm doing here. Let me switch to the other camera. So this will be a sample quilt that I'll share at QuiltCon. So I'm a multitasker. Most women are, right? So as I'm quilting this with you each week, I am going to share this as one of the examples of using shapes in a quilt to do improv quilting. Now, it's called structured improv because we need a structure. We need something to start with. And so we're starting with the shape that's already inside the quilt. So that's what I'm doing here. And then in the lecture, well, probably in the classroom, not so much in the lecture, I will break down this step by step on what that really looks like when it comes to really quilting it. Here, I'm just giving you kind of an overview. If you're going to Atlanta next year, February 2027, I hope you can join me. And it's a full day workshop on improv quilting. I'll teach 3 different improv techniques with using lines and shapes to quilt different designs. So we'll do that all hands on. We're going to use my Stitchline Ruler, of course, right? Because it was designed for multiple things, but especially for improv quilting. It has the reference lines that we need to do certain techniques for improv quilting. All right. Can a separate journal be ordered? Yes, Marcia, you can go inside the bundle. That's a good question. Inside the mega bundle, my mini bundle, the free motion quilting starter bundle that includes the machine quilting, the machine setup, the free motion quilting shapes, and the journal are all separate things that you can purchase on the website. The bundle does not exist on the website. I made it especially for the mega bundle, but you can get all 3 of those separately. So yes, you can get the journal. I can get that link for you and put it in the chat. Let me get it. Quilting planner tools. Where is it? Planner. Nope, that's not it. Let me look one more time. All right, where did that link go? All right, it's not there right now, but I will fix it before in the next 30 minutes, say. I'll fix it in the next 30. Once I leave here, I'll fix that link. I don't know why it disappeared. There's always something that I think is there that I thought I fixed and it's not fixed. So I'll fix that, Marcia. You can get the journal. All right, Kelly, fantastic. Yep, I will be here on Saturdays, first, second, and third Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's see. I think this is the third Saturday of August. Let's take a look at the calendar. 1, 2, 3. Yes. So we will not be back here for Studio B Live until September, the first Saturday in September. So that's going to be Saturday, September 5th. All right, September 5th. However, we are getting together here next Friday, 7 p.m. for Quilt Conversations Live. And we're going to have a chat with Lisa Shepherd Stewart. Yes, Shepherd Stewart from Cultured Expressions. I thought I mixed her first and middle name. So she's going to come and chat with us about African print fabric, how to use it in quilt projects. She's going to share a couple of her projects with us. We're going to talk about the culture of African fabric, where it comes from, how it's made. I met her in Chicago in May at an event in Chicago, and we had a great time. I took her class, and I found it very interesting, and I wanted to bring her here as a guest, and she said yes. So come back next week, Friday, 7 p.m. here on the YouTube channel for that conversation with Lisa. Let me see if I can get a photo of her up here. I thought I had it out already. Let's see. There we go. I hope you can make it. If you are here for the first time, I'm so glad that you're here. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified when I go live and I upload videos. So next Friday, August 21st, Lisa will be here. See if I can get that down a little bit smaller. There we go. And we're going to talk about African print fabric. So yeah, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you enjoyed our time, make sure you give it a thumbs up and don't keep it a secret. Tell your friends about the mega bundle, about our sessions on Saturday, and also Quilt Conversations live on the third Friday of the month at 7 p.m. Ladies, have a fantastic time with all your projects and your sewing. Keep in touch. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment or go to my website and send me an email. Just hit the contact button at the bottom of the webpage and contact me. And if you have questions about free motion or ruler quilting, what you'd like to see here on the channel, let me know about that too. And all the resources that I talked about tonight are all in the description box below the video. Just click more and all the links are there for the mega bundle, for the Stitchline Ruler, for all the tools that I've used tonight, even the curve rulers that I shared. If that's a ruler that you've been wanting to get, I gave you links for that. So if I didn't provide it, just let me know, because I forget things. I forget things. Oh, you're welcome, Scotty. You're very welcome. Let's see. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome, Bernita. You're welcome. Yeah, I'm excited about it too. It's going to be a great conversation with Lisa. Yes, have a great weekend, everyone. Let me Turn that off. All right. And I'm glad you like the new camera position. I'll use this more and more. I think you guys gave it a thumbs up. Yes, you like this new. That way you can see more of the quilt, what's happening. You don't get to see the needle as close, but it is what it is, right? I'm trying to do a little bit more each time to see what will work best depending upon what I'm sharing. Now, it's likely that this quilt, if I have time, it will be mostly quilted, at least with phase 1 of the improv. And then we'll come back and talk about what I did. Would you like that? Because I think it's a really good beginning and I'm really excited about it. I think it's looking really good. But there are phases and stages. All right. Good night, ladies. I'll see you next time for another Studio B Live. I'm so glad that you came. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you around.